Thank you for joining us for the first MISC recruiting podcast. We're really excited about this, and we are trying to create this podcast as a podcast for defense, intelligence, and aerospace industries, the Huntsville community that we reside in, and then trending topics in the cleared community as a whole. We really want to bring an insider's perspective on recruiting hacks, interviews with defense and intel leaders and bright minds, and just bring an overall sense of humor to the complex challenges that our recruiting community faces, which are many. Thank you, as this is our first episode, and we really hope to take this in a lot of different directions, and we're excited to see where it goes. First, we'll do a shout out to Will Harbison. He is the owner of Coin, which is this awesome space that we're in. It's an amazing co-working space here in Lincoln Mill, here in Huntsville, that we have an office at, and it's been great. A lot of great people here. Leary Studios is here, and also Bard and Glass, who are producing this podcast, and we can't say enough great things about the people that they are and the work that they do. So in today's episode, kind of wanted to give you an introduction to our company, Cleared Recruiting as a whole, and why it's really imperative to have a recruiting firm helping your government contractor to stay competitive in today's contracting landscape. This is Liz.
Hey.
Liz started with MISC in January of 2023 and came from a defense contractor and manufacturer. She's amazing and is a key factor in our customer interaction, as well as a lot of our behind-the-scenes talent sourcing.
Oh, thanks, Matt. It's so sweet of you to say. Thanks for having me. I mean, it's a joy working with you and being part of MISC, and I'm excited to join you on our first episode or so.
Yes, me as well. Well, yeah, MISC was started in 2019 here in Huntsville. A lot of people don't know this, but Huntsville is one of America's biggest tech hubs. A lot of people call it the Silicon Valley of the South. And we are home to the Redstone Arsenal, which was founded in 1941, fun fact here, as a chemical weapons development site, and then was a post-war site for rocket development under Operation Paperclip for all you World War II buffs. It's a fascinating history, and the Arsenal has evolved into one of the largest R&D bases in America. I moved here in 2013 and became part of my family staffing franchise. We were a commercial franchise, but it taught me a lot about recruiting and how some of these smallest jobs and jobs that might seem the easiest to recruit for are actually the hardest jobs to recruit for.
Definitely.
All those different nuances that there can be when recruiting for a position.
Yeah.
So that's where I learned it and became part of that business. And then being immersed in the Huntsville community quickly kind of brought me to working with defense contractors. And I loved that. I was never in the military, but it brought me this sense of purpose. We were supporting missions from a staffing standpoint that were really protecting our national security and doing really important things and helping our country as a whole. And so that meant a lot to me. After a few years, I knew that that's what I wanted to do, so I started MISC and really started focusing on a defense and intel customer base. And then from there, just really took off, and we've been in business for a few years now, and Liz has joined in as well. So
No, that's awesome. Okay, so I don't know if you get this question a lot, but I'm assuming our listeners are going to want to know why MISC? Where did the name MISC come from?
yes, so I was trying to come up with creative names for a company. You know, for what we do, we are really in the background. I wanted to be this staffing firm or recruiting firm that was more than just, supplying positions. I
Right.
liked becoming part of a customer's family and
Yeah.
an integral part of their operations as a whole, and able to give them like strategic advice on their staffing and what they were doing. We also staff a lot of discrete positions, which
That's
might be
true,
for
yeah.
the intelligence community. So I wanted to remain somewhat ambiguous. Fun fact, I love James Bond movies, for all of you guys that do. So if any of you know the character Q, I always relate our company to Q in the James Bond movies because we sit at a desk for hours every day,
Right.
and we find people for the James Bonds or the government contractors who go out and do the work. So we're always lurking in the background of the customer's success, kind of like Q is always doing his little tech things for Bond behind the scenes. So
Well, and believe it or not, I think I've only watched one James Bond movie, and the only reason I did is because Adele wrote the song story, which is Skyfall. That was my only reason. And so
it's a
now
great
I think I
song.
need to go back and, and watch the rest of it, and then I can be like, you know what? Yeah, you're right, Matt. We are like that. 'Cause, yeah, I'm clueless right now, but
This is us. So, kind of wanted to see, I've talked a lot, obviously, about the beginnings of MISC. I wanted to, ask Liz a few questions. I wanted to see, Liz, why you were interested in being a part of MISC and, what your background was before MISC as well.
yeah, I mean, first of all, who doesn't want to work for MISC? I mean, it's a great company. But, on a serious note, for me, I come from a military background, family in the military. My father served in the Army, and my brothers actually served in the Air Force as well. And I never really thought about joining the military, but it was part of my lifestyle. And so I thought, okay, how about I join like the defense contracting world? I can at least help serve our country in that way. Started off working on the project side and then making my way as a planner. And I really enjoyed it, but I'm more of a people person. I love making connections with people. I love building relationships. And so that's just who I am on a personal level. And so I'm like, how can I find joy and fulfillment in my career, continuing that aspect of who I am? And being a recruiter gives me that opportunity. You're working with the customer, building that relationship with them, helping them with their needs. And then as you are talking to candidates, like I always tell them when I talk to them, we'd love to help you hopefully move forward in the process, but more so making a connection with you, that, have that relationship with you through the process. But then if things change in your future, then you can always say like, hey, you know what, MISC was there, they helped me out, we built this connection, let me reach back out to them, kind of build that kind of connection and relationship. And so MISC for me, I felt like provided that. So not only do I can continue to build relationships and connections on a personal level in my life, but also in my career. And I've enjoyed it so far, and hopefully many more years to come.
I hope so.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
So what, in your opinion, is the hardest part of cleared recruiting specifically?
Oh, it's easy. None of it. It's all been easy. But no, seriously, I think, and you might agree, it's been the fact that ever since COVID, so many people have had a taste of remote work. and which is great, you know. But now a lot of companies are bringing that back in and saying, no, we want people more on site. And it's just hard to find candidates who are willing to go back in. You know, I think they're more standing their ground of, no, I know that I could do my job remote or at least hybrid, and they want to stay that way. And yeah, that's kind of been the hardest part, is just trying to fill those needs. Yeah, I, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that's been a huge challenge. Yeah, I think we've seen that with a lot of our positions recently is, you know, especially like probably certain niches like software development,
Yeah,
or more administrative, maybe geared roles like financial or
right.
contracts, where those jobs can be done remotely. So I feel like, you know, people are comfortable in that setting and not wanting to come back in. Whereas now a lot of those company or contractors and agencies are wanting to have them back in house for
Exactly. Well, and then
security
it
and
brings also the issue of there's competition out there. So
yeah,
what might a company offer a hybrid might be more enticing for a candidate than one that doesn't. And so that's another thing too. It's sometimes a candidate has multiple offers, or they're going, you know, through the interview stage with multiple companies. And so then it becomes like a battle or a competition of, you know, who offers the best package that they want. And so
right.
that makes it difficult, because you get so far into the process only to be shut down, or, you know. So that's been something else I've noticed is kind of been a little bit more difficult lately.
Yeah, that's been a tough one, probably for the last 2 years.
Well, if it's been 2 years for you, it's only been a few months for me.
Yeah.
So, and then also with cleared work, I've noticed that a lot of them require you already to have at least a secret clearance.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think for us, when there's a position that offers the ability to obtain one, you know, it's a great opportunity. And I think that's how we present it to candidates. It's like, hey, it's hard because not many companies are doing that. They'd rather have someone, at least, depending on the position, a secret clearance. And then at that point, they're willing to upgrade depending on the position. But to
Right.
find an opportunity to give someone that opportunity, I guess, to come in and obtain a clearance.
It's huge.
So it's huge. So it
Yeah.
makes the pool of candidates smaller.
Right. Yeah, I think for candidates who may not have had a clearance before, if they're presented with an opportunity to have a company sponsor that clearance, they probably want to realize that that costs the contractor usually anywhere from 15 to 25,000.
Right.
And then, so that's a sacrifice on the contractor side. And then in the future, that helps them in their career to most likely earn 10 to 20,000 more.
Right.
You know, depending on
Yeah.
your area that you live in. I mean, that's
Exactly.
a huge value. So, yeah, that's always something that I think we try and encourage people toward if they,
Right,
if they get that
exactly.
chance. One of the other things, and kind of to circle back around why it's so essential to use a cleared recruiting firm, and this is some data that if you're only listening, you know, I'll try and walk you through. Clearance jobs is great, and if you're a cleared recruiter, you probably already use this
Right.
site. But they also have a lot of great data and a lot of really good information for you to work through that is really valuable to give to customers or to look over with your team. This first graph is really a representation of people with clearances. And to give you some idea for those of you who might not know a lot about the cleared community, you know, if you don't work in it or if it's something that you do work in but are not really aware of the community. So to give you some comparable numbers, the current unemployment rate in the US overall is 3.8%. And what that means, the U.S. population is around 333 million. That means around 12.5 million are unemployed in America right now as a whole. Now, the cleared community as a whole is much smaller than that. It's only 4.73 million, and only 8% of that 4.73 million are unemployed. And around 50% of those unemployed, which is right around 378,000, only 50% are unemployed because of retirement or their contract ending. So really, essentially, that means that a very small amount is unemployed because they want to be. They're probably,
Right.
coming out of active duty and retiring, or their contract is just coming to an end, maybe unexpectedly. Maybe they're walking into a new role, or maybe not. But what this graph shows in particular is since 2015, essentially, there is the same amount of people who are eligible with a clearance to work, in 2022 as there was this many years ago. There's a lot more people eligible with a clearance, but without access, which is probably
Right.
that crowd who retired. It also could be that crowd who wants to stay remote
Yeah, that
and
could be
hasn't
it, yeah.
changed. So not sure there, but that's pretty wild numbers, considering this is another graph that will show from clearance jobs. And this is a comparison of job growth in the cleared community since 2014 to 2022. And then it's comparing the job growth of cleared positions to the amount of cleared candidates that we have in circulation in America. This could be CONUS or CONUS, so not necessarily America.
Right.
But since 2014, cleared jobs have grown 1,080%.
I mean, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's-
And the cleared workforce size has essentially stayed the same, especially COVID. The clearance processing times were a lot slower
Yeah,
than
definitely.
pre-COVID. So I feel like we're catching up now. We kind of see that with some of our customers,
Yeah.
but it can still be a process, especially for TS or above. But that is why this landscape is so competitive. That's why cleared recruiting is so competitive. People
Yeah.
are probably getting multiple calls, emails,
Oh, yeah.
messages every day for roles because of this exact situation, because there's such a high demand for them with clearances.
And I feel like the demand's higher too, the higher their clearance is too, or like that they might be getting more calls, or they're, people are looking for them. So it's harder to fill those spots with
Yeah.
the higher the clearance level, I believe. And I've noticed too that a lot of them don't want to, at least recently, they don't want to do keep up the higher clearance level.
Yeah.
It's like, if I don't have to do all of this work to maintain this, and I can still maybe, have a clearance, a good level clearance, recently it's like finding that special unicorn for some of these positions because they don't want to keep up with that high clearance.
Right. The CI polys and the FS polys
Yeah.
are challenging to maintain and do take a lot of work.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think the higher the clearance level too, like over TS, unemployment is essentially non-existent.
Yeah.
So unless you really just are looking to switch to the commercial industry,
Yeah.
or unless you just aren't looking to work at the moment, or
Yeah.
retiring, are essentially no unemployed people, which is
Right.
wild.
Well, and I think too, it's like depending on where you live, right? So someone more in Cali might be willing to let go of their clearance to go more on the commercial side,
Right.
versus somebody maybe in the DC area. That the type of work might be a little bit different. So then maybe the kind of clearance that they want to maintain, it would be different,
Right. Yeah. They probably have more options in the
Yeah,
commercial
exactly.
space,
Yeah.
in that area as
So
well.
location could play a part.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Um, and another really important aspect, I guess, that is very relevant to us for contractors to use, cleared recruiting firms is most of our customers a lot of them are small businesses,
Yeah.
especially here in Huntsville.
Yeah, definitely.
And they might have limited resources, so limited HR people, limited recruiters. Most of the time, I feel like our recruiters might be intimidated by us, but I feel like we're a recruiter's best friend.
Yeah.
We mostly work with in-house recruiters or in-house HR people who might handle recruiting.
Yeah, I think that's what makes us like stand out as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it might seem intimidating, but then when we actually like talk to them and like I said, it's like we build that connection with them. So we bring it back down a little bit of like, hey, it's more of just like a relationship, and we're here to help you, however that looks like. So hopefully, people don't feel too intimidated, but I think that's what makes us stand out.
Yeah.
It's just how we are, like who we are, building those connections, not only with our customers, but our candidates as well.
Right.
So,
We have that time to source for hours and
yeah, yeah.
search multiple databases, whereas they don't have that time because they're doing onboarding or payroll
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
those other fun HR duties.
Yeah. It's like take a little bit off their plate for them, and do more of like, I'd not say the dirty work, but
Right. Almost.
yeah, maybe the parts that they don't want to do, because I mean, just talking to some of the HR, they're like, oh, I don't like the sourcing part, and so we're like, okay, well, that's what we do. So let
Right.
us help you do that.
Yep. And I think another important thing that we've seen lately, especially, the need for contractors when they're finally awarded a contract, a lot of our customers will be like, hey, we're waiting on award. And then when they're finally awarded it, the government expects them to
Yeah.
staff it within, a week.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
almost
stressful.
impossible. And, because most of those people those contingent candidates are not going to wait
No.
around for a position for 2-3 months.
Yeah.
And so, that along with protests,
Yeah.
contract protests, which those throw so much uncertainty into recruiting. I think
Yep.
that's why a lot of our customers use us
Yeah.
in coming to us and saying, hey, we have a very short timeline.
Yeah.
Can you make this happen?
Definitely.
But those are challenges too.
Yeah, they are. Because, like you said, it's like you're hoping that those candidates would wait through all that, but then you run that risk of other companies, reaching out to them and then extending an offer because
Yeah.
maybe then they're ready to start rolling with their contract. And then, so there's, with this kind of work, that you just never know
Yeah.
what it's going to turn into, what happens. It's just,
There's so many variables
Yeah.
because it's, recruiting in general is hard.
yeah.
But then cleared recruiting just
Yes.
adds so many more nuances and
Yep.
Variables that you really have to consider. And
Exactly.
they're not only consider, but they're requirements for
Yeah.
the government to have these things. So, well, I think one important thing that we should address is so relevant recently was the government shutdown
Yeah,
or
definitely.
pending government shutdown, which luckily there was a stopgap put in until November 17th. But I heard about it at my daughter's football game.
Yeah, my neighbor mentioned it too, and my dad mentioned it. So I mean, it's being talked about, and the
Yeah.
timing of it, like really, like close to holiday season. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's yeah.
That was rough, and it especially affects the Huntsville community because, so for those of you who might not be familiar, Redstone Arsenal, around 40,000 people work on Redstone daily, and then we have Research Park, we have Redstone Gateway, and I mean, pretty much every contractor you can imagine here in the Huntsville area working. And so
Yeah.
it's just such a time of uncertainty. There are contractors who are deemed essential who might have funding
Yeah.
past the end of the fiscal year. Of course, government and civilians, if they get furloughed, would receive back pay. But there's so much uncertainty that it's a time you really have to rely on, an internal contracts person to evaluate, where your company's contract is at, what the legalities are behind it,
Right,
and what that
exactly.
means for your workforce. But just a kind of tough time, so hopefully that all gets sorted out. How it affects us, from a recruiting standpoint, I think that we still have to be green lighted and go,
Yeah.
since most of our customers' needs were yesterday.
Yeah. And then it's like as soon as things are ready to go, like you said, they expect to have like candidates ready or a list of people, so yeah, it's like you might think it's going to slow down, but in reality, you still have to communicate with candidates, that might, but they were in the process of maybe a position, and then letting them know like, hey, things might be a little bit slower right now, and just keeping that line of communication.
Yeah. Yeah, and being upfront with them about,
Yeah.
hey, this could take a little bit longer,
Exactly.
It's hard, but I think being honest and upfront with candidates during this time is something that they'll appreciate too in the long run,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
be able to earn their trust in that way. But yeah, we thank you all for joining our first MISC podcast. Really enjoyed our talk here today.
Yeah, definitely. And also we love to hear from our recruiters, our hiring managers, our listeners, like what are some topics, some trends you've seen, or just any questions you might have that you feel like you would love for us to address. We'd love to hear from y'all. This is just our first episode, so hopefully things will get better and we can provide even more like better and good information. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all in this together, so
Yep, we hope to feature a lot of helpful information to recruiters in the cleared industry specifically that
Yeah.
might help in your day to day. We would like to have a lot of our customers on who can offer a lot of insight into the industry.
Definitely.
And then news about Huntsville as a whole.
Yeah.
It's an awesome place. Obviously, we might be biased, but to feature a lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
businesses and events around here is
Yeah.
is
I mean, if you
pretty
would have
neat.
asked me about Huntsville maybe like 12 years ago, would have been like, I don't know. But Huntsville for sure now it's great. It's amazing. Not only for like career and work, but family. There's so much to do now. So yeah, it's up and coming.
It's a great place.
It is.
So if you're looking for a job, definitely move here, is what we're saying.
Yes, come to Huntsville.
Well, thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.